All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream. Hope everybody is doing well tonight. Let me just knock this down real quick, very briefly. All right. Hope you gentlemen are doing well tonight. Trying to get this trying to look at this on my phone. Let me know down below. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me. If you guys can hear me, let me know in the chat because I'm not sure if you guys can't hear me or not. Seemed like my audio was good though. Pull forward a bit. Let me see. Pull forward a bit. Oh yeah, audio should be good. All right, before I get started. Oh yeah, also I wanted to place it. Okay, Llama God is good. You can hear me? Okay, good to know. All right, before I get into this presentation, which is what I wanted to do today, I wanted to show you guys this presentation today about some things that I've been thinking about regarding mulatto culture and some values that I think we could adopt that would inspire us as a collective, as a race. And just to give you guys a very brief intro on why I'm doing this and why I think this is so important, a lot of people who are in this space, or maybe I should say some people in this space, have kind of floated around different ideas on how we should go about creating an authentic mulatto culture. And some people think that we should try to revive or resurrect or build upon older models, pre existing traditions, pre existing values and cultures. And I'm not opposed to that. I actually think that would be good. And we can maybe bring some of those cultures, bring some of those values in. We could look at the food ways and the different festivities and the way that mulattoes express themselves going back 1 or even 2 centuries. And then we can build on top of that, or we can merge that with some of our more modern um, or recent values. And I think that we could create an authentic culture out of that. But something that I think is very important to understand is that there is this misunderstanding, and I actually posted about this yesterday um, on my page. And there's this notion that okay, before you create an authentic foundation to your culture, you're going to make food, you're going to make clothing, you're going to make art, you're going to make music, you're going to create all this stuff out of thin air. You're going to create all these different customs, all these different um practices, you're going to create all these different foods, all this kind of music out of thin air. But you have to understand that is the aesthetic and the cosmetic level of culture. There's different layers to culture. There is the surface layer, and then there is the substrate, the foundational layer, the layer on which the surface layer is built upon. And the surface layer is far more important because the surface layer is about values related to how do you as a group relate to work, duty to family, duty to society. How do you emphasize education and learning? What role does sex have in the society? What role does family have in the society? How do you what do you emphasize long-term planning? Do you emphasize intergenerational responsibility? How do you resolve conflict? What are your attitudes towards violence? What are your beliefs on justice, morality, virtue? Those are the deeper, more foundational levels of culture by which the cosmetic layer is built upon. So the underlying software, or the underlying hardware, I should say, that is what allows the entire culture to organically exist. And then from that hardware, you get all these beautiful artistic and culinary um, innovations. So there's this kind of misunderstanding, misconception that people have. There is a deeper, more foundational layer to all cultures. And this is what really allows cultures to survive, traditions and practices to survive. If people are not loyal to the culture, if people don't really embody the culture at that deeper level, that surface level it's not really a living culture. It's not really a living tradition. It doesn't hold the same weight or value. It's harder to maintain it over several generations. And so, like I said, for me, building at the foundational level is far more important. Um, so I don't know if that makes sense. What's up, Val? How are you doing tonight? Hope you're doing well. Um, yeah, but before I get into this, um, hope you guys are doing good today. If you guys have any questions you want to ask me, we in here. Shout out to you, Mulatto Vanguard. What's up, my man? Yeah, man. So this is something that I think is very important. And people often criticize us. People often criticize this space. They say things like, um, we're too focused on negativity, and we're too focused on being anti-black and fighting against other groups and all this kind of stuff. We need to focus more on more positive things. And I think that that's fair. I think that's a fair criticism. But here I am doing it. We're doing the work. So now we need to see other people doing this as well. So, anyways, with that out of the way, let me see here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get into this presentation. Want to make sure you guys can see it. Showing it on my side. Okay, here we go. So we're going to start here. So this is the first virtue. This is the first and most foundational level of the mulatto culture. There's different values that I put in here that I think are very important, but the very first one is filial piety. And I'm going to read the definition of filial piety here. Let me put it in a slideshow. So filial piety is a foundational Confucian virtue that emphasizes deep respect for one's parents, ancestors, and elders. This entails conducting yourself in a manner that brings honor to your family, your ancestors, and your community, using your resources to take care of your family, and ensuring they are well fed and financially supported. And lastly, family maintenance and support is a core part of one's life and responsibilities. People need to understand the family, the nuclear family, that unit, that is what a society and a community is built upon. If you don't have family, if you don't have a community, and there's no loyalty to it, there is no sense of duty to maintain it or ensure its long-term well-being, then from that, the entire society begins to break down. And you can see this very well in the Black community, not to use the Black community as a punching bag here, but it's very clear what happens at scale when 70% of children in a particular community are birthed out of wedlock. You get more crime, you get more degeneracy, you get lower education rates, lower high school completion rates. Everything begins to break down when there is no sense of loyalty to the family, when there's no sense of value that is placed on the family. Everything begins to break down from that point forward. And to add on to this sense of behaving in a way, conducting yourself in a way that brings honor to your community, that brings honor to your ancestors. There's different ways that people can go about doing this. There's different ways that people impose these kinds of moral standards on themselves. Some people believe in a God. Some people just have maybe a strong sense of internal, personal, a moral conscience. But for some people, making sure that they're honoring the legacy of their family, the legacy of their ancestors, bringing pride and a sense of respect to their own name, that actually creates an impetus in them to conduct themselves in a way that is respectable, to have manners, to look people in the face and shake their hands. It gives you a sense of pride and a sense of honor to know that the way I am acting in the world is bringing a sense of pride. It's bringing a sense of honor to the people who came before me. If my ancestors were looking down on me right now, they would be proud of the way I am conducting myself. They would love the way I am conducting myself. And so I think for a lot of people, feeling a sense of attachment to your predecessors and feeling like you should conduct yourself in a way that is honorable, I actually think that's huge. And this is very, very, very important for the reasons I'm about to state here. One, it produces a high trust society and high trust culture. When everybody in a culture is expected to conduct themselves in a way that brings honor to their family name, that means everybody is acting in accordance with a set of social rules. So you don't have thieves, you don't have criminals, you don't have liars, you don't have deceivers. Everybody is expected to behave in a way that is deemed honorable. And nobody finds it honorable to be deceitful, to be a liar, to be a thief, to be a criminal. That brings shame on your family's name. That brings shame on your ancestors. And this is why having a shame based culture is very important. So, a sense of operating in a way where you want to put your best foot forward and honor the people who came before you, very important for a society to survive and maintain high trust. And this is something that's very common in East Asian countries, in China, Korea, Japan, other East Asian countries, which is why they have such low crime rates and which is why they have such high trust societies. There is a sense that you are responsible to your family, you are responsible to society, and it's not like this ridiculous excessive individualism like we have here in the United States, where it's just kind of one big free for all. You can do what you want, you can walk around with your pants sagging, you can walk around smoking a joint in public. You know, it's one big free for all. There is no order, there is no standards. Filial piety, conducting yourself in a manner that brings honor to yourself and honor to your ancestors, very, 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 very important. Second reason why it's important is it incentivizes people to rely on their family for material support rather than the state. As a race, as a group, as mulattoes, we want to be self-sufficient. We want to be able to rely on ourselves, each other, and our families, and even our communities and our friends to some degree, rather than relying on the state. Anytime you get to a point where you are dependent on the state, you are screwed. Because what happens at that point is the incentives become negative. It generates negative incentives, perverse incentives, to use the correct phrase, where working hard, freeing yourself from being dependent on the state actually harms you because you're no longer getting Section 8. You're no longer getting EBT. You're no longer on welfare. So making sure that you are below the poverty line also coincides with making sure you continue to get more benefits from the government. It's not good to be on assistance from the government. There's no sense of pride in that. There's no sense of honor in that. It's not something that you should be proud of. And this is something that we need to be really emphasizing as mulattoes. We want to have pride. We want to have honor. We want to have a sense of self-sufficiency, not dependent on the state. We want to be able to make sure that we can take care of our elders, take care of our children, take care of ourselves, take care of our community, be self-sufficient without needing to rely on the government. The other reason why this is important is because it creates a strong and capable population. When a people believes it can depend on itself and the other people in the community around them, it gives them the impetus to go out and create things, go out and create wealth, go out and create opportunities. And this aids the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that I also think is very valuable, that I'll get into later. But coming from a strong family, coming from a strong community, coming from a strong group, it creates a positive feedback loop. It reinforces that over several generations. And the last reason why it's important, filial piety, is because it keeps families together. And when you can keep families together, you can keep communities together, you can keep countries together, you can keep nations together. It literally keeps society from falling apart. It is extremely important to keep families together. And on top of that, when families stay together, it coincides with all kinds of mental health benefits, psychological well-being. So filial piety is very important to me. The main critique of this is that, what if you have a bad family? What if you come from a toxic family? What if you come from a family that is abusive? I get all that. These are all exceptions to the rule, though, okay? If you do come from a family that's toxic, or family that's negative, a family that's abusive, of course you need to extract yourself from that situation. But hopefully you have a wider surrounding community that you can depend on, as opposed to having to resort to excessive individualism or, God forbid, relying on the US government. So that's the first value that I think is important here. I'm looking at the chat over here. What's up, Raj? Hope you're doing good. It's good. It's morning where you're at, I'm assuming. Okay. So I'm going to continue with this. I'm going to continue going through these slides. And then at the end, I want you guys to hop up here on the panel. Let me know what you guys think. But I'm going to continue here. All right. So that's the first part. The second part is intergenerational responsibility. And this is important. So you guys are going to see a common theme throughout this entire presentation. The big themes are family, duty, education, and intergenerational responsibility. That's probably the biggest thing. Making sure that we understand the value of passing on culture, passing on values, passing on education, knowledge to each subsequent generation. This is huge because one problem that I really have with a lot of Americans, and I even have experienced this in my own life, is people in your own family will not help you get ahead, which I think is crazy because to me, logically, it's like, why would you not want your successors to be more successful than you? Why would you not want your successors to be more wealthy than you, to be more innovative than you, to be more productive than you? It doesn't make sense because it only will benefit the subsequent generations and the wealth will accrue down the line. So I don't like this selfish kind of ethos that a lot of Americans have where it's just, I need to look out for myself. Let me get my money. And once I get my money, I'm going to do my own thing. I believe very strongly in intergenerational responsibility. It is our responsibility, it is our obligation as elders, as adults within a particular community or society to make sure that we're looking out for the subsequent generation and making sure that they do the same thing. So I'll read the definition here. I said intergenerational responsibility is the ethical obligation current generations have to preserve natural resources, infrastructure, and societal welfare so that future populations are not compromised. It emphasizes sustainability and long-term decision-making, ensuring today's actions, such as greenhouse gas emissions and waste disposal, do not harm the planet's habitability. One of the key aspects of intergenerational responsibility is saving money for future generations to ensure that they have the necessary resources to succeed in life. You don't want each subsequent generation to have to rebuild from scratch. You want them to be able to launch pad off of what you've built. And the reason why is because if you start right here and you work your way up here, you don't want the subsequent generation to have to start back down here and then work their way up here because you never work your way all the way up as a family over multiple generations. You just stay at the same point. This is why generational wealth is so important. This is why investing in your children's future and their education is so important. This is what East Asians do. This is what Jews do. This is what any successful family does. Pass down wealth, pass down knowledge, make sure the kids had a better life and a better starting point than the one they had, and then you continue that trend down the line. This is how we need to start thinking, long-term thinking, planning for subsequent generations. So that's the first thing, saving money. The second thing, and this is a more spiritual effect, viewing material belongings not just as superficial items that are good for pleasure or for signifying social status, but as relics of the family's past and inheritance for one's children. I do not like this mindset that a lot of Americans have that the things that you buy or the things that you own are only good as toys. They're just things that you use to pleasure yourself. I think that every piece of property, every piece of land, every watch, every car, everything that you pass down to the second generation or next generation, it is a relic of your family. It's a piece of you. And it is a reminder of what the previous generation has done for you. And it's an inheritance for you. And once again, what this creates is it creates continuity. It creates a line, a connection between each generation down the line. And these different items, they contain a level of of significance because they remind you that it's not just you're just another individual in the world deracinated from the surrounding environment. It reminds you that there are things that belong to you, things that you are inheriting, things that you need to build upon. So this is another aspect of kind of the virtues that I want to cultivate: intergenerational responsibility. The last part of this is a belief that every generation as a collective is obligated to pursue social betterment as a demonstration of love and care for successive generations, which in turn incentivizes the following generations to repeat the cycle. So, like I said, over multiple generations, when everybody makes sacrifices, when everybody works towards the common good, when everybody looks out for each other, things get better over time, down the line, over and over and over and over again. And here's a couple reasons. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it says it creates a sense of togetherness and tightens social bonds, creates an individual and collective sense of purpose. This is huge. Intergenerational responsibility and duty to family creates a sense of purpose. We often hear in America there is a crisis of meaning, a crisis of purpose. When you have a community that you're looking out for, a family that you're looking out for, children that you're looking out for, a society that you're looking out for, to seek its betterment, that gives you a deep sense of purpose. What I'm doing right now gives me a sense of purpose. Purpose is extremely important. So, what we are beginning to learn is that vanity, wealth for its own sake, pleasure for its own sake, these are not things that can give you a sense of purpose long term. And this is why so many people feel lost. So, being a steward of each successive generation gives you a sense of purpose. So, this is very important. Remind subsequent generations of the role in society as stewards and not just consumers, also very important. Produces stable families and communities, incentivizes the maintenance of culture, traditions, and knowledge, and incentivizes long term planning and investment. So, that's intergenerational responsibility. Oh, now this is one of my favorite ones. It's one of my favorite ones: collective might. This is very, 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 very important. Collective might. And I put collective resolve here, but collective might is the belief that as a group, we can overcome any obstacles, any struggles, or any battles. As a collective, we have the strength and capacity to control our destiny, march into uncharted territory, and climb to the greatest heights of human potential. We can tame the wilderness, put a man on the moon, and take on any adversary. Collective might is what gives a people the will to survive. It is extremely important. Without collective might, without a sense of collective will, a sense of collective resolve, you will never fight for your traditions. You will never fight for your culture. You will never fight for your society. You will allow yourself to basically be washed away into the ether, into the wind. And Max Weber, who is a sociologist, he has a term called the disenchantment of nature. And this is a term that he used to describe the kind of Western Europeans who, as a byproduct of living in Europe, which was a colder climate, they were forced to understand nature. So it isn't like this idea that Europeans or white people are special or anything like that, or they industrialize because they're just better than everybody else. They industrialize because they were threatened by nature. And so in Europe, in a cold climate with floods, with hurricanes, with deadly diseases that weren't present in Africa, they had to find different ways to survive, in many cases by taming nature, creating fires, creating huts, log cabins, creating ships, creating complex societies. Having the will, having the collective belief that we can do anything as a group, that is what's going to help us succeed. It's what's going to help us go to the next level. So there needs to be a sense within all of us as mulattoes that we can do anything. Together, we can accomplish anything. We can put a man on the moon. We can take on any adversary. We can win any battle. We can tame the wilderness. We can understand and tame nature. This kind of attitude, this kind of belief, this is what really propels people to the next level. Very important stuff. Very, very important stuff. And I said here, a sense of belief that is rooted so deeply in us as a people, it gives us the confidence and impetus needed to reach new heights. It provides a shared purpose by inspiring individuals to contribute to something greater than themselves. It enables long term achievement by motivating people to pursue goals whose rewards may benefit future generations. Once again, that's the same theme. It encourages innovation and exploration by giving people the confidence to challenge limitations and pursue the unknown. This is very important. It strengthens unity and trust by creating bonds that allow communities to work together effectively. It inspires ambition and excellence by fostering the belief that greater heights are possible through collective effort. Also, very important. And it preserves civilization's progress by ensuring each generation builds upon the achievements of those before them. So, one thing I want to just say here, where I kind of splinter off from the Europeans, is I don't worship capital. I don't worship money. I don't worship the individual the same way a lot of Western Europeans did. And I also didn't even necessarily worship the disenchantment of nature the same way Western Europeans did. But what I do like is that collective ethos. I do like that collective ethos, that belief that we can do anything, that we can understand the unknown, that we can understand the world, that we can achieve new heights. One thing I just want to add, though, like I said, the worship of the individual, individualism, I think is good. It has its limits, but I don't think the worship of the individual is good because it creates, like I said, an effect psychologically where people believe themselves to be a unique standalone identity, which is false. I would not be who I am today, where I am today, if it wasn't for my family, if it wasn't for the community I was raised in, if it wasn't for the country I was born in, if it wasn't for the time, effort, care that was poured into me, I would not be where I am today. So there needs to be this understanding that the collective is a the collective is what gives skills, gives knowledge, gives success to the individual. So, anyways, I'm going to go over here and see what you guys are saying, though, in the chat. If you guys are saying anything. Okay, you guys are just letting me present. By the way, at the end of this, I'm going to let everybody come up here and talk to me and give me their takes. So I'm going to try to go through this a bit quicker. Okay, stewardship and succession as moral values. Stewardship is the responsibility to protect, improve, and manage the resources, institutions, culture, and achievements entrusted to us. Succession is the obligation to prepare future generations to inherit these responsibilities and surpass the accomplishments of those who came before them. It ensures that progress is preserved rather than lost between generations. It encourages people to think beyond their own lifetime and consider the future. It creates a sense of responsibility towards those who will inherit the world we shape. It prevents short-term decisions from damaging long-term prosperity, motivates each generation to leave behind something greater than what they received. It strengthens continuity by connecting past achievements with future ambitions, and it encourages investment in institutions, traditions, and knowledge that outlast individuals. So, very simply put, stewardship is the idea that you are coming to inherit something. You're inheriting a civilization. You're inheriting a society. You're inheriting a community. And it's your responsibility to steward it, to look over it diligently. And then, of course, succession is once you're no longer a steward of it and you're going to pass that down to the next generation, you make sure that they have the skills and knowledge necessary to maintain what it is that they're stewarding. Very simple stuff. Delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is the discipline of sacrificing immediate comfort or pleasure in pursuit of greater long-term rewards. It represents the ability to prioritize future success, growth, and stability over temporary satisfaction. So delayed gratification is huge. Very important. Delayed gratification is also indicative of intelligence. It's indicative of long-term wealth, long-term success, your trajectory, the ability to make sure that you prioritize more important, more immediate, more urgent demands as opposed to short-term pleasure. That is how you ensure the stability of a society over a long period of time. Think about all the Roman emperors who were most responsible for the decay of the Roman Empire. People like Nero, people like Caligula, people who were vain, people who were Like I said, they didn't have the ability to delay gratification. They were undisciplined. They didn't have moral hygiene. We need moral hygiene. We need the ability to delay gratification. All of these need to be core values in any culture that we create. Being able to delay gratification, put the most important things first, put the less important things like pleasure and vanity on the back end. Simple stuff, self evident. Duty to family, society, and community. I've kind of already touched on this, but duty is the recognition that individuals have obligations not only to themselves, but also to the families, communities, and societies that sustain them. It emphasizes responsibility, loyalty, and contribution as essential parts of a meaningful life. People complain in America once again about the death of community, the death of third places, the death of civic life. And this is largely because we don't feel any sense of obligation or duty to the people or the environment around us. And once again, this particular virtue is connected to so many different things: intergenerational responsibility, stewardship and succession, the mentor apprentice dynamic. Once the duty to family, society, and community begins to decay, everything else goes with it. Morals go out the window, virtue goes out the window. So, duty to family, society, and community, very important. Youth empowerment. This is something I believe in strongly. Youth empowerment is the belief that young people should be equipped with the skills, confidence, responsibility, and opportunities necessary to become future leaders. It recognizes that the strength of any community depends on preparing the next generation to take responsibility and shape the future. Think about the country right now. How many people in Congress are 80 years old? How old was Biden? How old was Obama? Mitch McConnell, 100 years old, right? We want to create a society in which we make sure that the youth, by the time they reach adulthood, is ready and willing to take on the world. We don't want a society of neets. And, you don't want a society of people who are 30 or 40 years old, still living with their parents. I know this is, largely this is economic. I get it. But once again, we do need to create a culture where we make sure that people who are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old have a bright future ahead of them. This is something we really want to emphasize so that they can, like I said, they can inherit the throne, they can inherit the institutions, and the older generations are not preventing them from rising. So we want to give them the necessary tools and confidence to succeed in adulthood, give them ownership over their future and make them less dependent on others, and create a healthy transition of power from one generation to the next. I'm a big believer in youth empowerment. And this was one of the hangups that people have with filial piety, because they believe that it traps the youth in a debt to previous generations. But I believe there needs to be mutual cooperation and mutual respect. So the youth needs to be empowered, but we also need to make sure that we take care of previous generations. That's how I look at it. Meritocratic egalitarianism. So I commented on this earlier today in my community post, where I said that egalitarianism, I don't believe in this kind of vague egalitarianism that all people have the same aptitudes and the same skills and that all people have the same, all people are identical, right? I don't believe in that. But I do believe in creating a culture of meritocratic egalitarianism, which is the belief, and I guess I'll just read it here, the belief that every individual is worthy of investment, opportunity, and intellectual/personal cultivation, as opposed to elitism, which argues that some individuals are inherently superior or more capable than others and are thus entitled to more investment and opportunity. Now, I don't just oppose elitism for the sake of it. I also don't like the idea that there is a special elite in society that is just way better than everybody else. And because they come from wealth, because they come from a noble bloodline, that they are entitled to power, they are entitled to influence over society. I don't believe that. I believe that every individual in society is entitled to investment, entitled to an education, entitled to being cultivated by the people who come before them. And this is not just some heady liberal ideal. There's actually evidence to back this up. And I'll read the example here. In 1960, in Finland, only 11% of students made it past ninth grade. Okay. By 2003, Finland ranked at the top of the charts for PISA test scores globally, ahead of Japan, South Korea, and all other Anglosphere/European countries. The PISA test is basically an international test that they give out to different countries. And high school students take this test to measure their aptitude in history, science, math, and reading. So, like I said, in 1960, only 11% of Finnish students made it past ninth grade. By 2003, they were ahead of Japan, South Korea, the United States, and all other European countries. Now, why did that happen? That's a very important question. And one of the main reasons why this happened is because they believe that all students should receive a high quality education. One of the important sayings in Finnish culture, it's a popular mantra, is we can't afford to waste a brain. So that's how they say it in Finnish. And the source for this is Hidden Potential by Adam Grant, which is a book that was written in 2003. So, like I said, I don't believe in this myth that certain people are inherently superior or inherently better in some way. I believe that the more you invest in your population, the more you get out. I'm not this believer that, I'm not like some Malthusian who believes that everybody is kind of a drain on society and it's only the certain highly productive individuals who are worthy of investment and power. So in America and in Japan and South Korea, what they do in their system is they separate the talented, exceptional students from everybody else, and they give the exceptional, talented students all the investment, all the opportunity, all the attention, and kind of just leave all the other regular students to go about having a mediocre education. I believe in maximizing opportunity and investment for everybody, all mulattoes. And that's my personal opinion. People can disagree. I want to hear what they have to say, but I think that there's evidence that this is better. Entrepreneurship and innovativeness as virtues. When I see a mulatto business, or even mixed race for that matter, business pop up, I want to invest. I want to give them money because I like that. I like seeing an entrepreneur. I like seeing a hustler. I like seeing somebody who's going to innovate, who's going to generate value for society. So entrepreneurship and innovativeness, hugely important to me. And these, I think, are also virtues that we should embody as a collective. By the way, if you guys have any questions in the chat, please let me know your guys' opinions in the chat. I see 3 people are watching, but I'm gonna proceed. So entrepreneurship is the virtue of creating value through initiative, risk-taking, creativity, and problem solving. Innovativeness is the willingness to challenge existing limitations, develop new solutions, and continuously improve the world around us. Imagine this. Imagine you have an entire mulatto society that is high trust. People are loyal to their families. People feel a sense of duty to their work, duty to their family, duty to their society, duty to their community. They have a sense of intergenerational responsibility where they want to transmit knowledge, achievements, wealth to future generations so that they can prosper and then multiply that. We also have a society that encourages learning, egalitarianism, and meritocracy for the entire population so that everybody has the opportunity to thrive. And then on top of that, we have an innovative and entrepreneurial ethos and a sense of accountability. Imagine that. Imagine how powerful and unstoppable we would be. That all paired together with our collective might, our collective resolve, our delusional sense of belief that we can do anything. We would be unstoppable, literally unstoppable. These are the values that need to be at the foundation of everything. All the other stuff can come later. The food, the music, the festivities, all that's fine and dandy. It is this core hardware that is going to take us to uncharted heights if we embody these values. Very important stuff. Entrepreneurship, innovativeness, hugely important. And it is the origin of so much wealth and prosperity that this world has been bestowed upon this world. Entrepreneurship, innovativeness, very important. And I said down below, it drives economic growth. It encourages individuals to become creators rather than consumers. It rewards creativity, courage, and initiative. It allows societies to adapt and change and adapt to changing circumstances and challenges. It transforms problems into opportunities for improvement, also very important. And it empowers individuals to take control of their own future, also very important. We don't want a culture of people who feel unable. We want a culture that imbues people with a sense of willingness and ability. Moral realism and objectivism, also very important. Very, 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 very important. Moral objectivism, moral realism. Moral realism is the belief that objective moral truths exist beyond personal preference, emotion, or social convenience. Objectivism emphasizes that reason, reality, and human flourishing provide a foundation for identifying principles that guide ethical behavior. If something helps improve or helps us further understand reality, and if something assists rather than prevents human flourishing, we can also recognize that it has some objective value, some objective truth to it. When a society emphasizes the importance of rest from work and family and holidays and enjoying nature, there is a correlation to higher rates of happiness, higher rates of joy, longer lifespans. This is true in Denmark. This is true in Iceland, some of the happiest countries on earth. This is true in parts of Italy. This is true in Costa Rica. Countries that emphasize family, celebration, food, places that celebrate joy, those places tend to do better. This is not some subjective, random belief that I just pulled out of thin air. This can be observed through empirical data. So believing in moral realism and objectivism, as opposed to just, morals are fake, morals are made up, reality is fake, reality is socially constructed, that lends itself to moral decay. So we need to have objective standards of morality in order to keep our society intact. And I'll read why. It provides a stable foundation for distinguishing right from wrong. So it's not, right and wrong is subjective. No, there is a real right and wrong, and it can be identified. It prevents morality from becoming dependent on changing opinions or emotions. Also very important. Also very important. It creates a consistent standard for morality. It's not just based on people's opinions or emotions. It encourages rational thinking and honest evaluation of reality, which also keeps people from kind of diving into these hysterical screeds about what it means to be moral. They're like, you're evil, you're horrible, you're confused, you're anti-Black. If we have a consistent standard of understanding what is right from wrong, what is moral, what is true, and we're not just reduced to insults, ad hominems, we will be able to resolve conflict a lot more easily. So it encourages, like I said, rational thinking and honest evaluation of reality, as opposed to, this kind of pseudo-Freudian psychobabble or just emotivism. We'll be able to engage in rational discourse on morality. It allows people to hold themselves and others accountable. It creates consistent standards for individual and societal behavior, which lends itself to high trust. It protects important principles from being abandoned for convenience, also very important. This is how societies survive over several millennium. It encourages the pursuit of truth rather than comfort or popularity, also very virtuous. And it creates clarity when societies face difficult ethical decisions. Education and work as moral virtues. This is self-evident. Work hard, get educated, take care of your family, be disciplined, be competent. Simple stuff. You can't be a freeloader. Mentor-apprentice dynamic, also very self-evident, similar to the intergenerational responsibility stuff and the successor and stewardship stuff, where it's like the role of subsequent generations is the older people are mentors, the younger people are the apprentice, and both fulfill that role. And in that role, they have a sense of purpose. One learns, the other teaches, one multiplies, the other invests. So that's kind of what the mentor apprentice dynamic is. Our culture should be built on not think about how it is with rap culture and in the black community in some cases. The OGs never want to hand the keys to the car to the young people, or they want to outshine them, or they want to compete with them. They don't want to let them flourish. It's this kind of poppy plant syndrome because of ego. We don't want to suffer from that fate. We want to have humility and be humble and recognize when we need to kind of move out of the way and let the next generation take our place. And all of us serve a fundamental purpose here. Think about what it was like in Kung Fu Panda. I know it's kind of a silly analogy, but Master Oogway and Master Shifu, they were the elders, and they were trying to teach the I forget what they're called, but he was trying to teach obviously the Dragon Warrior and then the other team that was there. It isn't about hogging power. It isn't about hogging resources for yourself, hogging attention, hogging approval for yourself. It's about making sure you create a lane for the next generation. So we don't want this poppy plant syndrome. That's another major problem in the space. Major problem in the space is that there's too many egos. I know what's his face said it. Al Lanier, he said head mulatto in charge. We don't want that. We want to support each other, take care of each other, look out for each other. Some people are mentors. Some people are the apprentice. Some people here will teach us about what it's been like in the space. Some people here, like Mulatto Mindset, will teach us about opportunities in other countries. Some people like myself I'll do more of the political stuff. Somebody like El Mulatone, he'll do some of the historical stuff. We all need to kind of build each other up. There's a sense of mentor and apprenticeship here. That's how we win. It isn't we're all kind of jockeying for power and trying. No. That is going to hinder us from flourishing. So anyways, that's the mentor-apprentice dynamic. Maintenance of beauty, very important. Very, very, very important. When a society becomes less beautiful, everything goes out with it. Think about the hood. Think about Baltimore. Think about Detroit. Think about Chicago, the South Side. What do all these places have in common? They're all dirty. They're all filthy. I believe that there is a positive effect on the collective conscience of a group of people when they live in a clean, orderly, safe community. They are incentivized to maintain that affair. They are incentivized to maintain their community in that state. And beauty gives people a sense of inspiration. You get virtue from beauty. You get art from beauty. You get music from beauty. We want to see mulattoes and we want to see our likeness represented. We want to see strong men represented. We want to see beautiful women represented of our race, of our group. And we can look to them as inspiration. I think beauty is very important because beauty gives you something to be inspired by, something to admire, something to go after. And like I said, beauty has a positive psychological effect on society. And I'll just read some of the effects. It creates environments that inspire pride, creativity, and human flourishing. And it also creates a sense of pride in yourself when you live in a beautiful place surrounded by beautiful people. It reflects respect for the places and communities we inhabit. It preserves cultural achievements and artistic traditions for future generations. It reminds people that life should be about more than mere survival and utility. Very important. And this is something that Big Raj told me about earlier today, which is actually very important. The way my mind works is I'm very detailed, organized, I'm very serious. I make sure that I have all my ducks in a row, and that kind of consumes me. Makes it harder for me to be happy, makes it harder for me to enjoy life because I'm so focused on these like very important things all the time. And we need to leave space for caring about beauty, caring about joy, caring about nature, caring about the environment, caring about deeper, happier, optimistic things, as opposed to just concerning ourselves with survival or money or what's going to get us ahead. There needs to be balance there. So shout out to Raj. We need beauty, gives us inspiration, and it reminds us there is something in the world that is bigger than just surviving. There's something to aspire to, something to transcend. So anyways, that's my opinion on beauty. It encourages excellence by valuing craftsmanship and attention to detail. Very, very true. It strengthens communal identity through shared symbols and spaces. This is very important. This is why we need the mulatto flag. This is why we need a mulatto crest. This is why we need mulatto merch, mulatto, what's the word I'm looking for? Memorabilia or insignia. Insignia was the word I was looking for. We need mulatto insignia. Very important stuff. Symbols give identity. Symbols, the thing that's beautiful about symbols and art and statues and these sorts of things is that they represent something to your unconscious mind and your subconscious mind that go beneath your rational thinking. And you can connect to these symbols on a deeper level. So symbols, insignia, very important. It improves quality of life by making environments more meaningful and enjoyable. Yes. It demonstrates that societies value permanence, order, and refinement. Yes. Very much true. Yes. It inspires future generations to create rather than simply consume, and it connects human creativity with the broader pursuit of civilization and progress. Yes. We need to be thinking about not just how we can survive, but how we can thrive, how we can create beauty, how we can create art, how we can go beyond just this base level of primordial concerns, how we can transcend that to a greater level, achieve a greater plane. That's what beauty represents. So beauty, very important. Civic responsibility, basic stuff, pay your taxes, follow the law, make sure you contribute to society, make sure you do charity, make sure you participate in some organization, make sure you are aware of what's going on. Doesn't mean be obsessed with politics, but have a general understanding of kind of current affairs and be engaged, participate, serve, respect institutions, understand that that the society that you live in and the society that you occupy exists only because people have a sense of duty to maintaining the kind of order that allows a society to prosper. Sorry, I keep hitting the mic. So yeah, it cultivates virtue, obviously. Civic responsibility, very straightforward. We want people who are participants rather than observers, strengthens trust between citizens, encourages individuals to protect and improve their community, creates a sense of shared ownership over society's future, prevents the decline of institutions through neglect or indifference. That's actually very important. You need to understand your history. You need to understand your society. Try to understand your legal system and understand why it's important. Prioritize the common good alongside personal interests and develop responsible citizens capable of self-governance. That's very important. We want to be capable of self-governance if we ever are in a situation where we have to, right? The collective over the individual. This is controversial, but I'm going to explain why I believe the collective is more important than the individual. So the collective over the individual is the belief that the success and well-being of the broader community must be considered alongside individual interests. It emphasizes that individuals achieve the greatest potential when they contribute to and benefit from a strong, unified collective. It reinforces the idea that personal success is connected to societal success. It enables collective action during times of crisis or opportunity. Very, very important. This is why I put collective over the individual. If everybody's just an individual and we don't have any shared struggle or shared meaning, then when the going gets tough, everybody's just going to jump ship and look out for themselves, which is obviously going to create problems, and it will lead to decay within our group. So people need to be able to understand that the collective needs to come first. The collective comes before the individual. It transforms a group of individuals into a cohesive and capable society. It strengthens unity by creating a common purpose among individuals, and it prevents excessive individualism from weakening social bonds. That's very important. And this is the caveat I put, not to say that the individual should be subordinated to the state or the nation, but rather that they should have a basic understanding that their well being and success is only possible within the context of a safe, stable, and wealthy society, environment, and family. So I said this earlier, but as an individual, you are the byproduct of much larger entities, and you are responsible to those entities. Because once you no longer feel that way, and everybody begins to no longer feel obligated to these larger entities, those larger entities collapse, and then you collapse with them. So individuals need to understand that they have a role in society that is larger than themselves to maintain the order. And once again, this is not to say that individuals should be, you know, owned by the collective. That's not what I mean. But it's just to say at a basic level, you understand why the collective is so important and what your role in it is. Not to say you can't pursue your dreams, live where you want to live, get married to who you want to get married to, but just understand that you are attached to a larger entity that goes beyond yourself. So that's why I put the collective over the individual. Property rights. This is self-evident. Property rights are very important. You need to be able to have your own property and invest in your own property and maintain it and pass it down through generations. I'm a big believer in property rights. And I'll read some of the reasons why at the bottom. When people know they can keep the fruits of their labor, they are motivated to build, innovate, and improve their assets. Access to capital, secure titles allow owners to use their property as collateral to secure loans, start businesses, and generate wealth. I'm a huge believer in property, owning property. We need to own property. Property is a gateway to wealth. And I believe that in a society, we should all want to be property owners. All mulattoes should want to be property owners, not just renters, property owners. We want to be in the class of people who owns property, not just renters, owners. We need to be owners. We need to be capitalists. We need to be entrepreneurs. I'm being very serious about this. We can't just be renters. We can't just be complacent. We need to own things. So this is why I put property rights is so important in here. And when everybody has property and their rights to that property is respected, it also creates higher trust. Big believer in property rights. Protection from arbitrary seizure, limits on the power of the state or powerful entities to confiscate, or limits on the power of the state or powerful entities prevent confiscation, which encourages people and corporations to make long-term investments, which once again leads to the improvement of society over time when people invest in it. Incentive-based welfare state, very simple. We want people to work hard. And if people are going to be on welfare, it should only be the most desperate people in society who literally can't help themselves, or people have welfare and they have access to it, but it's contingent on their work. So I think about a place like Singapore, and in Singapore, they have something called the National Development Bank, where 20%, 10% or 20% of what you make from your salary or your biweekly wage, 20% of that is taken out and put into a government bank account. So you only make 80%. They tax you a lot in Singapore, but the 20% that is invested into your government account, your employer has to match that. So if you put in, let's say you make $2,000, you put in 20%, that's $400. If you put in $400, your employer matches it. And the government of Singapore allows you to use that money, that 20% that you put in every check, you can use that money to buy a house or get access to healthcare, but you have to work. You don't get freebies. You can't just get on Section 8. You have to work. There is no excuse for young, healthy, able-bodied men to not be working, to not be contributing. You need to work. You cannot be lazy. There is no excuse for that. That is not who we are as a people, as a race. We work hard. We generate value. We own shit. So I don't believe in freeloading. Only the people who are the most desperate and needy should ever be on welfare. Otherwise, everybody else should be working. And this is the last one. And I actually added this in here because of Raj. So, Raj, if you're watching, shout out to you. Joy as a moral virtue. Very, 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 very important. Joy as a moral virtue is the belief that cultivating happiness, gratitude, optimism, and appreciation for life is an essential part of human flourishing. It recognizes that a meaningful life is not only defined by achievement and responsibility, but also by the ability to celebrate existence, build relationships, and find fulfillment in the journey. Very important. There is a documentary I was watching called Blue Zones about 2 years ago, maybe 3 at this point. But Blue Zones is a documentary on Netflix that goes to every single part of the world where the average lifespan is 100 years old. There was one in Costa Rica, there's one in Greece, there's one in Italy, there's one in Loma Linda, California. And the reason why these people live so long is because they are surrounded by family, surrounded by loved ones. They appreciate the small things in life. They're religious, many of them. They eat healthy. They celebrate festivities. They understand that life needs to be deeper than just work, fulfilling your obligations, survival, making money. Obviously, those things are important, but there is a second layer to life that people so often miss, which leads them to getting burnt out and becoming depressed and having all these mental illnesses because there's no joy. There's no optimism. There's no beauty, no appreciation for nature, no appreciation for family, no appreciation for friends, no building relationships. There is nothing joyful in their life that offsets or complements their responsibilities. So joy is very important. Song and dance is very important. Song and dance, good food, drinking. Not everybody likes alcohol, but I am sympathetic to it. Drinking, like I said, festivities, joy, celebration of life, celebration of existence, celebration that you have friends and a tribe and a family and a group to exist alongside and love and be with. Joy is very, very, very important to the human condition. So I put here a few reasons. It reminds people that the purpose of achievement is ultimately to create a life worth living. And this is the thing. In places like South Korea, even though they have some of the highest rates of education, very intelligent population, they are exceptionally hard workers in South Korea. They work 50 hours a week. They also have the highest suicide rates. And that's because everything is about achievement. Everything is about status. It's a joyless society. It is a joyless, competitive, draining society. And that is why Squid Games was built based on the work culture and social culture in South Korea. So we need to be balanced. We need to be balanced. Everything can't just be about materialism, achievement, status, work, all these other things, beauty, rest, love, family, joy, food, drink, song, dance. All of that is just as important. And that's what it means to be mulatto, to be balanced. So I'll read the rest of these, and then I think I'll end the slide because this is the very last virtue. But I'll read the rest of these, and then I'll open up the panel so that you guys can hop on and talk to me and let me know what you guys think. But anyways, joy as a moral virtue creates healthy communities by encouraging connection, celebration, and gratitude, prevents discipline and ambition from becoming empty pursuits without fulfillment. Very important. It inspires creativity, curiosity, and appreciation for the world around us. It allows people to recognize and cherish the progress they have already achieved. Also very important. People don't know how to celebrate themselves. People don't know how to celebrate their own success and their own achievements. That's bad. We need to be able to celebrate. And it strengthens relationships by encouraging generosity, kindness, and shared experiences. So joy as a moral virtue. Shout out to Raj for reminding me about this. Lightheartedness, kindness, joy, very important. So shout out to Raj. He's the reason why I added this in here. And that's everything. That's everything. Foundations for mulatto culture. Filial piety, intergenerational responsibility, collective might, stewardship and succession, delayed gratification, duty to family, society, and community, youth empowerment, meritocratic egalitarianism, entrepreneurship and innovativeness, moral realism and objectivism, education and work as moral virtues, mentor-apprentice dynamic, maintenance of beauty, civic responsibility, collective over the individual, property rights, incentive-based welfare state, joy as a moral virtue. So that's everything. That's everything I got for right now. No questions, just listening to the values that are important to this cause. Reading some of your guys' comments. Basically, this sounds like a mixture of a number of characteristics of various societies that are being put together as a sort of PowerPoint presentation. Yeah. This strikes me as utopia. Al said this strikes me as utopia. Al, if you're still here, get up here and talk to me. What's good, family? What's good, 1316? Again, none of this has anything to do with mixed race people. I love how smart you are. Thanks. Here, let me share the referral link. I don't know why it's putting some kind of discount in here. Trying to share the link with you guys so you guys can get up here and talk to me. I want to talk to Al. Yeah, I don't see anything here that relates specifically to mulatto and mixed race people. Well, if you read my community post yesterday, I explained why. I explained that there needs to be we are trying to create a sense of who we are on a deeper level, what it means to be us on a deeper level that goes beyond just the cosmetic layer of culture, which is food and song and dance. And I think that these values are actually very important. And values that you live by is what creates a sense of collective identity. Culture is deeper than just superficial stuff. Hold on. I'm trying to see if I can share the link. Did it? It might have sent you guys. It sent you guys to some different thing. Hold on. Trying to share the thing with you guys so I can talk to y'all. How do I share this? Oh, here we go. Invite guests to the studio. Guest constrained. Here we go. Copied. All right. Al, get up here and talk to me. I want to hear what you have to say. That's the link for anybody who wants to come up. And then we can remove this. These are society standards anyone should have. Yeah, but not everybody lives by those values or those standards. Well, you are reading what I have to say. I mean, I'd like to talk to you about it if you want to talk about it. If anybody has anything to add, please feel free to give your thoughts. If you guys have critiques of it too, I mean, I want to hear the critiques. Hold on. Yo, what's up, Raj?
Yo, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Hold on. Let me just see. Here we go. All right. I think what you said, I think the values that you were talking about, like the mulatto values and everything, like kind of go in line with the mulatto vanguard, mulatto commandments. You know what I'm saying? It kind of almost kind of like goes in depth on them or kind of expands on them a little bit just to make sure that everything is succinct. That, you know, somebody would be like, what about this value? What about this value? Like, we already have that covered. We already addressed that. You know, everything that we need to be as an advanced functioning society is already taken care of. So, you know, we don't really need to be corrected on that point because we can, you know, understand how it goes ourselves.
Right.
So progress.
Yeah, I was gonna say, here's the thing. This video is going to be a permanent reference point. So I thought it would just be useful to put this video out here, or go live and talk about this and put it out here just in case, like, you know, at some point people decide, hey, like maybe if we want to start like an actual community, these are some of the values that I think we should build the community on. That would kind of give us the ability to survive long term, because I think that at a foundational level, there are deeper, more foundational aspects to the character and the fiber of a group of people that allow it to thrive, that go beyond, like I said, the more cosmetic aspects of culture, like song or dance or food or those sorts of things. I think that there's more important stuff beneath the surface that I think needs to be emphasized. And so I just thought I would go live, and I know I get it's all hypothetical, but your foundations here are fundamentally a rather broad philosophy. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, but it's all very common sense stuff. It's not
Yeah,
rocket
that's really
science,
all it
Al.
is.
Like Al, I don't know what Al's criticism is. He's saying it's broad, but it's like, well, everything I said was actually pretty direct. It was maintain beauty and emphasize beauty. Uh Education and work are moral virtues. It was you're responsible for the success of generations. You are the collective is more important than the individual, or should be emphasized more than the individual. I mean, there needs to be a sense of collective resolve. So I don't know. I don't think what I said was very complicated. I don't know
No,
if
no, not.
I, it wasn't right. It's very straightforward.
I mean, it's also seemed like kind of like a foundation for spiritual beliefs. I think my channel is definitely more like along the lines of like more spiritualism because I talk about like occultism and whatnot too. I think progress is even as well because he
Yeah,
talks about Christian values as well. So,
definitely. Progress. Did you have something you wanted to add, bro?
No, I'm just here to support you, brother.
I appreciate that, man.
You're entitled to your beliefs, and you're entitled to speak how your mind on things that you think that are going to help the community out. And at least if anybody doesn't agree with it, at least you're putting something out there. Like it's better than just staying silent. So I mean, I kind of don't get what Al is talking about because are you is does Al have something that he'd like to add? I don't know, where can I go and read or see what Al is having to say, because at least you're doing something to put something out there. We don't all have to agree on everything. Like you don't have to agree on my Christian values, except for maybe like I'd kind of like somewhat have something to say to somebody if they didn't agree with the 10 commandments. Like who can't get behind the 10 commandments? Like, so, at least you're putting something out there and I respect it, so.
Yeah, we're brainstorming. We're brainstorming. This is not like some final end all be all. This is gonna be like what we do. No, it's brainstorming. And I don't know. I thought it would be good to get us headed in this direction because you know what all of our ops are going to say? They're all going to say, oh, all you guys do is criticize the black community. All you guys do is criticize white people. You guys are so negative all the time. That's what all of our ops like to say. That's how they like to
yeah,
characterize us. But it's like, well, if I'm going on here and I'm talking about joy as a moral virtue and the importance of like taking care of your family, like that sends a very different message. You know what I mean? Um, Al said, let's put this one up on the screen. Al said it's a rather broad philosophy, beauty, for example, and it's not really a realistic assessment of community building. Well, it's funny that he chose that one as an example because beauty is actually the most direct and clear one. That's the most easy recipe for community building. If you have symbols, if you have emblems, if you have monuments, if you have just art in general depicting our likeness, all of that creates, like I said, it taps into a deeper level of the mind that goes beyond the rational level that appeals to deeper preferences around what you find beautiful. And I think that, like I said, art, beauty, these things are very important.
What does Al
And
want us to do? Live in a hut and jump around dirt? I don't know.
I think he might be Michael Sprague. Another Michael Sprague account. I looked at the channel the writer Albert Lanier
no,
channel.
he's a cool
Because
guy.
I've seen him
Al is a cool
before.
guy in his defense.
Okay.
Yeah. He's artist specific, beauty is broad. Well, of course we're going to be biased. I mean, we're going to depict ourselves as being the most beautiful. We're going to depict our women as being the most beautiful. That's the whole point of it, the art. The art is an expression of us. That's what the art is. That's what the beauty is, an expression of us, an expression of our ethos as a group. So the beauty, that is the beauty. That is what it's meant to represent, our likeness. So I feel like it's very simple, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel the most comfortable around other mulattoes and other biracial people because that in between look, a lot of us can fit into that in between look.
Most definitely.
I think beauty is very important. I
Hugely
love
important.
100%.
Yeah, go ahead, Progress. Go ahead, man. My bad.
Oh, you wanted me to cook on that a little bit more?
Go cook, man. You were cooking today. So cook some more.
Oh man, I'm not trying to blaze you, Al. You know I got love for you, Al. You do some good work out there, and how you cooked Umar. Oh, there he is. I'm gonna let him speak.
Go ahead, Al.
So,
be honest.
How do I address
be brutally
this?
honest. Be brutally honest.
No.
Please.
First of all, I want to say this. What you said about people criticizing, that there are people that criticize mulattoes and biracial people for being critical of monoracials, and you're offering something that isn't that. I think that's a good thing. So let's start out with that. That's good. I think that's something I myself have said on one or two occasions when I did panels. I don't do panels because I only come to YouTube to promote and market my work and my projects and my properties and outlets. That's the only reason I come on YouTube. I use it as a promotional marketing platform. I had to promote something that, not right now, but before I leave. So in any event, when I saw what you were doing, what I appreciate about it is this. You're putting thought and effort into thinking about what your idea of what a mulatto community would be like. But I think fundamentally it's just your idea of a mulatto community. And I think that's fine. And if you just say, this is my concept and this is my conceptualization, I think that's fine. I was critical because, number one, what you're talking about is not simply community, it's greater societal. In other words, all of these aspects that you're talking about is really more of a society, more of a nation state, more of a country. And the problem is that most mulatto and even biracial people,
I would disagree with that, but okay.
Well, no. If you take a look at your, I guess it's foundations for a mulatto community. If you look at that, it doesn't really have a just specific application to a community. It isn't just community driven. This is something that really is about the larger society because you're gleaning things from other societies, from other countries, from other nation states. So what I'm saying is, what you have to keep in mind is mulattoes, with the exception of maybe the Dominican Republic, which is generally a mostly mixed race country. I don't know why people don't note this. The whole Dominican thing is odd to me in the U.S., I must confess, but where people kind of give Dominicans heat for not being black, I've never understood that. The majority of the population of the Dominican Republic is biracial, mixed race, or multiracial, right? So generally speaking, you do not have a country that's purely mixed race. Again, the closest I think is Dominican Republic. You also have Cape Verde, which is also a large mixed race population. So that's real important to know. So I think there's a lot there. I think it's larger than a community.
Is there always
So
some
that
kind of
was
like
one of my
shootout
critiques.
where you
Yeah.
live now? I'm sorry. I can hear the ambulance in the background.
No, I actually live. There's actually a hospital a number of blocks away from where I live.
Yeah.
And so the damn ambulances are always, I don't know why, but they always, it's maybe a reason why I don't do panels either.
No, it's all good, bro. It's all good.
Always
It's all good.
irritate me.
Sorry for cutting
Yeah.
off
No,
your train
there's a
of thought.
hospital like a number of blocks away. It really is.
Okay, but
You know, when I'm doing my podcast, it really drives me nuts because I have to have a clean track. You think it's bad now? When I do a podcast, I go nuts. I'm like irritated. You're like, oh no, I gotta record again.
So you were talking about Cape Verde and Dominican Republic, right? And kind of
that's
national.
right.
Okay, go ahead.
I
Sorry.
have a question for Al.
Well, what I'm saying is, I think your vision and your foundations are not really community based. It's more of a larger societal based. So that was because I think you're extrapolating from different nation states to different countries, and you're applying that, and that's interesting to me. But again, from my perspective, I mean, if you're positing this as your conceptualization of a mulatto community, I think it's perfectly fine. If that's how you're pitching it and how you're looking at it, I think that's perfectly fine. From my point of view is this: when you're dealing with the mulatto community in the United States, there are two factors that I think need to be done. These are the points that I just want to make. The first is to look at the history of mixed race people, specifically black, white, mixed race people in the United States. I think that's important because there was a community. There were communities in places like New Orleans, Louisiana, in Charleston, South Carolina. There were organizations, there were institutions, there were groups. And I think this is something that's lost in this country. I didn't know this until I was much older and I found out about this stuff. And the reason I cite this as important is you have to have a sense of the history of mixed race people in America, because I believe you're dealing with America here. You also have to look at the realities of America. And that's why I say that I think your foundation is larger than a community. It's more societal and nation state. I mean, I think for all those things to work, the society has to change. The nation has to change. And unfortunately, in this country, I see no propensity or reason for, I don't see America changing. It's been 250 years, and it seems things are just getting worse in this country. They really are. You know, I could cite specific examples, but, you know, but I won't do that. But the second thing before I get to, I know somebody had a question. The second aspect is, I said history. The second aspect is looking at mixed race communities across the globe and studying those and looking specifically at how they function, what their issues are, what their struggles are, what their aspects are. This is places like the colored in South Africa, the party in Brazil, the mixed race in Cape Verde, maybe mixed race people in Dominican Republic, and even Haiti. There's some mixed race in Haiti. I think this is important because if you're going to deal with mixed race people, mulatto people in the U.S., it's also important to look at how biracial and multiracial and mixed race people function and move in other countries, because that could show us either what to avoid or what hopefully won't impact us. And it will also show us maybe what we can adapt or bring in. And on that, those were the points that I wanted to make. And I think somebody had a question.
Yeah, I think Progress has something to say.
Yes, sir. What's up, Al? How's it going?
I'm fine. And how are you?
I'm doing
yes,
well.
I can. How are you?
No, I'm doing well. Doing just having fun in life. You know, doing my thing. But I'm glad that you sound like you're in good spirits. I'm happy to hear that. But I have a couple questions about what you're talking about. You don't mind me asking you a couple questions, do you? All right, I guess not. Okay, so one of the things I was hearing you say is that we need to look at other mixed race or mulattoes around the world to see what they do and try to mimic what they're doing. And then another thing I was hearing you say is that basically we've got to beg and ask America for you know our own autonomy or ability to do our own thing. And it's like, oh, America, you know how they are, they're never going to change. you know and then the third thing is that I want to ask you, what do you think, how the Amish, because the Amish seem to be kind of off grid, out of American society, doing their own thing. Nobody seems to be bothering them. So the one of the parts is I want to know is about looking at other mixed race mulatto people around other countries. I just think that it's kind of not like our specific culture here, and they're not dealing with what we're dealing with here. So we're up against a completely different set of guidelines that they are, and we kind of have our own culture that we have here. So I don't mind looking at the way they're living their life in other areas, but they have no idea what it's like to be us in America. They get I don't know how everywhere is, how every country is doing their thing, but I know in America they had the one drop rule, which was genocide to us. It was evil. And so I'm not sure that how other countries experience it. I know a little bit, like in Haiti, how they had their revolution thing, and then after they got rid of a lot of the whites, then they slaughtered the mulattoes. So I don't know, like, I think that they have their own little culture and what they're doing, but I'm not really interested in trying to do what any of them did, because they're not having to kind of fight the fights that we're dealing with here. And I don't really have any issues with anything the mulatto activist said, and I don't think it's like a big nation, like we're trying to take over the United States of America. We're trying to have our own country, but at the bare minimum, why would anybody have any issues with us living like the Amish? So I guess I'll just leave it there and see what your response is to that.
Let me just say one thing to Al real quick. Al, I really like you a lot, man, but you gotta be able to like land your planes. Like you can't go on for 5 or 6 minutes. So just try to keep that in mind. But go ahead.
Well, I already kind of made the points that I wanted to make in that regard. So yeah, those 2 points were the major points, and then I mentioned my critique. So I outlined everything I needed to say in regards to your foundations. So in regards to what Progress had stated, I think that's your point of view. I mean, I think there are only 2 ways if you're going to focus on community. One, you have to look at what other mixed race people in other countries have done, because they are categorized as mixed race. If you go to South Africa, the colored are categorized as a mixed race population group legally, even though there are efforts, with employment equity to try to put them in the category. And even in Brazil, the Party are still a population group, even though there have been efforts by the Black movement to try to co-opt them. I think it's important to look at mixed race populations across the globe. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to copy them, but because their circumstances, as you pointed out, there are different circumstances there. But again, you have to kind of study them to see what those communities are like, because in the United States, specifically mulatto community, hasn't been coherent. The one drop rule and segregation pretty much fractured that. That's why I stated that learning the history of biracial, mixed race, mulatto people in this country is very important. That's really what you have to learn from. Studying the populations in other countries is a matter of looking, is the second aspect. It's like looking at, you already have the history, and then you look at, okay, how are these populations doing it? You don't necessarily need to copy paste everything they do, but you can learn what their issues and their problems are. And you can, if there's something that can be adapted, adapt it. If not, don't adapt it. Simple as that.
Yeah, well, I guess, let me see if I can put it back up on the stage. Okay, you guys can kind of see it. So we're gonna, let me go back, because there's some that I agree with you on.
Moral virtue.
That's a good one.
Like that.
So let's go back, right? So filial piety, we can just go through this step by step. Filial piety, I think that's very reasonable. I don't understand why any community of mulattoes wouldn't be able to exercise filial piety. I think this is not rocket science. You could do that at the community level. Intergenerational responsibility, that could also be done at the community level by passing down wealth and taking care of other generations of mulattoes in a given community. Collective might, this might be a bit, this is one that I think you had a legitimate critique on, because collective might, this kind of would be in a situation where we did have our own nation state, and we did have an army, and we did have a military and a government, and we could kind of, or we did have, business owners or large corporations that could innovate and do things like that. So this one might be a bit unrealistic. I'll grant you that. Stewardship and succession as moral virtues. This is something that could be done at the community level. Delayed gratification could be done at the community level. And a lot of these things also are internal and personal virtues that you can cultivate in yourself or in your family. And then they'll naturally, via osmosis, bleed into the community. Duty to family, society.
I was just about to say, it just sound like values that I would see anybody, in their right mind would have.
Yeah. Duty to family, society, and community, youth empowerment, meritocratic egalitarianism. This I could see how this could kind of strike you as being, we need to have our own public education system. I could see how this could strike you as being a nation state thing. Entrepreneurship.
We could do that like amongst each other and everything. Like we could have like almost like maybe mulatto specific history classes or whatever the case is. Anything that is specific to mulattoes could be like taught about in these schools, which would be like maybe blood types or maybe like, genetics, like biological, you know what I'm saying? So
right. Yeah,
definitely. Pretty much the Amish, they do the same thing. They have a different curriculum. Like nobody cares about what the Amish are teaching their people. They don't go in there trying to tell them what they need to be studying. So why can't we do that? Like,
yeah, I think what Al is saying is we don't have the infrastructure right now to do a lot of these things, which, I mean, I think he's correct about that. We don't have the infrastructure right now, but we do need to think about a position. We do need to think about a position in where that might be the case, where we might have the infrastructure. This country is huge, and this is a very rich country, and there's a lot of us. So I wouldn't be shocked if, someday, if we get any real momentum here, we could be in a position of serious power and influence where we could actually determine our own destiny. And I'll actually give you guys an example after I'm done going through all these. Entrepreneurship and innovativeness as virtues. This is something you could definitely do at the community level. Moral realism and objectivism. You could also internalize these values at the community level. Although this would require a lot of teaching and philosophy, which would require some form of formal education. Education and work as moral virtues. You could do this at the community level. A mentor-apprentice dynamic. This could be done at the community level. Maintenance of beauty. This could be done at the community level by creating art, maintaining a clean, orderly community. Civic responsibility, this also could be done at the community level, participate in local councils, be in local government. I don't know. Basic stuff, collective over the individual. You could also do this at the community level. Property rights. Okay, this could kind of require a nation state, but you know, in America, you already have property rights, so this is not really a big deal. Incentive-based welfare state. This obviously would require a nation state. And then joy as a moral virtue. This could be done at the community level. So besides this one, which else?
Yeah, I would interject and say that
This one.
like what the anything is possible mentality I think is necessary, but obviously it needs to be some realism with it too. So
Right. Definitely. And you know, I like that, Al. Oh, I think my bad. Sorry, Al. My bad, Al.
No, that's all right. I think your StreamYard acted up a couple times, so that's the issue.
That's on me then.
You know, like I said, you're fleshing things out. You're thinking about it. I give you credit for putting something together and putting it forward on YouTube. And you know what? I'll go back and reiterate what you mentioned before, that there's a lot of aspects of criticism lobbied at mulattoes and mixed race people. You're critical, you like to put down people and all that. I would say, let's see what monoracial people have to say about this foundation. And what I would argue, some of the, how would I put it, some of the biracial people who are perhaps not entirely on board with it. What do they feel about this? You know?
Go ahead, Progress.
I kind of expressed my point of view, but I look at this and I go, this is your foundation. That's fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, with the monoracials, what they have to say about it and what other mixed people have to say about it, in my opinion, I think if you're not identified as mulatto, you don't have a voice. I don't really care what any of you have to say that's biracial or mixed. If you're not identified as mulatto, that this is the only people that I care about their opinion on it. You're not in my tribe or our tribe as mulatto people if you're not mulatto identified. I don't even care if you have the gene pool to be mulatto and you want to call yourself black or you want to call yourself this or that, but it's not specifically mulatto. You don't. Your opinion doesn't matter to me. You're not the people that I'm looking to tribe up with, and I think that's the consciousness of most of us mulattoes. So we don't care what any of these other biracials think or say when it comes to our community. Now I can see, you know, going to see what monoracials have to say about it for, you know, slightly, but there's only a specific group of monoracials that I actually care about anything that they have to say. And those are the ones that would agree that the one drop rule was completely wrong and it was evil and it was genocide. If you think that it wasn't that, I don't really give a rip about what any monoracial has to say because you want to see me at the whipping post and on the plantation anyways. So I already know their stance that they'll want to burn my community down to the ground. So I already know what they have to say. So there really is no negotiation with them. And then the last part, just to land it, is that I can point to the so-called natives. They got their reservation, you know, so they got their casinos. So why can't we get our comeuppance for what has happened to us and leave us alone? That's it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Raj.
I was about to say it's going to be when it comes to those events in history, it seemed like they only came about, like the reservations came about, or those separate communities, isolated communities came about because of forced isolation or intense fighting with an opposing invading group, such as the colonizers in this case, which kind of like made it to that way. The colonizers almost kind of tired of fighting them, being like, well, fuck it, you could have your own community then. God damn, we're fucking tired of fighting you, fuck thing. Because all they were about was, you know, conquering everybody. So that's the one thing I was saying in terms of America. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to fight in order to like make mulatto like really probably fight tooth and nail, like almost the way you see these rioters with these, you know, leftists and these liberals have been doing with like the ICE uh riots and everything, all the fires out in LA and stuff like that. It seemed like in order to get somewhere in this country, you have to like fight tooth and nail to the point where the government's just literally just tired of fighting with you, and we're just like, fine, you get your shit, whatever. Just, you know, get out of my face with all that nonsense.
I was gonna say, let me give you. So I was gonna say, Al, this is for everybody, but Al, I want you to because I'm gonna give you a real life example. So, and this is directly specific to my own life on kind of a community and why I don't think what I'm positing here is really that unrealistic. So, I was born in Diamond Bar, California. Okay, Diamond Bar, California is now 60% to 70% Asian. It's all Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese. My best friend growing up was half Chinese, half Vietnamese. I went to his house all the time. My dad was best friends with his dad. So, and when I was going to school, everybody I went to school with was Asian, all East Asians. Okay. The house that I was born in 30 years ago, when my mom lived in that house in the 70s, there was maybe 3 Asian people on that block. There was no Asians. That was in the 70s. By the 90s, early 2000s, the Asians completely took over. They completely took over Diamond Bar, completely took over Rolling Heights. Prior to that, it was a couple blacks, but mostly whites, a couple other immigrant groups, but you know, there wasn't any Asians. Asians completely totally sacked Diamond Bar, Rolling Heights, and Walnut. And now that whole entire area is Asian. When I go to Diamond Bar now, and I go past H2K, and I go down Kalima, and I go down Golden Springs, literally every single building has Chinese wording on it, Chinese or Korean wording on it. And they run the grocery stores, they run the tax services, they run the laundry mats, they run the gas, they run the whole city, and they own all the property in that city. And this happened in a matter of 15, 20 years. It didn't take that long. And as a matter of fact, let me see if I can just pull it up. Find this screen over here.
So is that Northern California?
No, Southern California. I'm trying to add. Here we go.
It's SoCal. Oh.
If you guys
I should say SoCal.
South Carolina. I don't know if you guys can see this. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to read this. Diamond Bar and Rolling Heights became prominent Asian American communities through westward expansion out of Monterey Park, which served as the original Chinese ethno group in the San Gabriel Valley. So a lot of them were already here. They were all in Monterey Park. And as a matter of fact, Google Maps. Let me look up Google Maps. So you guys can see the specific area that I'm referencing here. You guys know exactly where we were.
Well, I lived in LA. I lived in LA twice, so that's why I asked.
So you're familiar?
So I had never heard of Bar. Yeah, that's why I asked whether it was northern, because I had it. Because I was going to say central next, but I never heard of the town. But there are a lot of small towns in California. The first time I lived in LA, when I took the bus, it was a lot of small towns. People have no idea how large California is.
Yeah. So if you guys can see the map, this area right here, this is Monterey Park. Okay. This used to be the Chinese hub. In 15, 20 years, all Chinese moved from here, all of them, literally all of them. And they basically took over this whole area. They took over Covina. Well, not Covina's Mexicans, but they took over like City of Industry, Walnut, Roland. If I can find Diamond Bar in here. They took over all of Diamond Bar. Like this whole entire region, basically right here, Rolling Heights, Walnut, Diamond Bar, Rolling Heights, and Walnut. all of this area now is East Asian, and all of them came from like what, 15, 20 miles away. So the thing is, it's like, you know, with the right initiative, with the right incentives, you can get people to relocate. You can get people to up and move and relocate and take over an entire city. Other people have done it throughout all of human history. People have been migrating, moving around, taking over certain areas throughout all of human history. The Asians did it. The Mexicans did it. The Europeans did it. I don't understand why we can't do it. What about us makes us so incapable of doing this?
No, we're going
so
to have
I
to
think
get.
I see what your plan might be. I mean, is this what you have in mind, partly in regards to your foundations? Is like
that would be
having
nice.
a town
Yeah.
that would
Yeah,
be
then,
mostly mulatto?
yeah.
So that's feasible. That is feasible.
Of course it's
I would say
feasible.
it's feasible. The problem is, here's the problem. How many people would get on board? I know with your foundation, but how many people would actually get on board with actually?
That's the tough part.
That's actually the hard part. Kind of number one.
That's our job.
Acknowledging that they're mixed race and mulatto, and then two, wanting to be involved. You know, wanting to be in a town like that.
Well, I mean, it takes time.
Beyond that, I think
consciousness.
I think that's an interesting goal. I actually think that's an interesting goal. Right.
It's like the Field of Dreams app.
But I think it would be the only way that you could put those foundations into work. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, it's the only way I think you could put those foundations into effect. You could do it on a municipal level. Not all of them, but a number of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to take time, though. At the end of the day, it might seem unrealistic now, but you never know what'll happen in like 10, 20 years from now. Anything could change. Everything could change. And nothing's impossible. You know, it might seem impossible now, but like I said, you never know later on down the line. It just takes time. Just keep being consistent.
We're taking steps, Al. It's baby steps. We're taking steps. We're building over here.
I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like you gotta kind of show people that you're really like about it, and like that you are willing to put out the results of what you were talking about. So,
right. You know, if there was a community that could be, for example, you know, a decent amount of industry, you know, enough developments so that families would be interested in coming in. Yeah. There's a feasibility that's there. Now there'd be a lot of work to be done because you have to have a cohesiveness among mulatto people and biracial people where they want to actually form a community and get together and start the, you know, not only move to a place like whatever this would be, but also kind of already be identified as biracial and mulatto. So, but beyond that, the idea of municipality, see, I think it could work. Some of those foundational points you mentioned, they could work on a municipal level. But I'll be brutally honest. I don't want to bring a negative characteristic here. You see it going on with what's happened on YouTube. Some of these people are not going to be the kind of people that you want. I won't say names. But they're not going to be the kind of people you want in a community like this, because they're going to want to inspire conflict, or they're going to want to create problems, or they won't go along with
like a vetting process.
Well, yeah, no, certainly. That's why you would want. Well, you know, ideally though, we would be doing it in an area that's not poor. We'd be doing it in an area where you need actually a little bit of money to live. And so that would kind of screen and filter out the less desirable, or maybe I shouldn't say desirable, but the less, well,
that's what I was thinking.
People who are less conducive to our group. But let me just read this real quick. This is what ChatGPT said. So I typed in here, this is what I typed in. I said, how did Diamond Bar and Roland Heights become so Asian step by step? It used to be rural and agricultural. They developed suburbs. Immigration laws changed. The first major wave was Taiwanese and Chinese immigrants, 1970s to 1990s. This is when my mom moved to that house in the 70s. There were still not that many of them. Taiwanese immigrants arrived due to economic opportunity and concerns about Taiwan's political future. So there was a kind of incentive that exists. Highly educated professionals. The other areas were more expensive. Chinese language businesses follow the population. So once the people, and this is the important part, once the people started moving there, once they saw a movement of Chinese people, a movement of Taiwanese people going there, naturally all the businesses came. The supermarkets, the restaurants, the tutoring centers, the churches, the language schools, the banks, the professional services. Once the people start migrating, all the business comes with it. Education became a major attraction. Housing prices pushed Asian families eastward because they used to live closer to downtown LA. They went to the east. Second generation families reinforced the trend, 1990s to the present. So that's basically how it was done. And this is what I said, how could we do this with Mulatto? So strong shared identity and purpose, which is what we're trying to build right now. Investment in education, family and intergenerational stability, very, very crucial. Economic networks and entrepreneurship, which is what we're also trying to do right now. Geographic concentration and institutions. This is the most important part of all of this. You have to start building the infrastructure, the schools. It says cultural organizations, businesses, charities, community centers, professional associations. If you can get all that going, everything else just falls into place. Here's another one, a culture of delayed gratification. And this is one of the things that I put in the presentation, and I didn't even know I was going to say it here. Many upwardly mobile communities emphasize saving, investing, home ownership, and sacrificing immediate comfort for future gains. So if we can imbue our people with a sense of delayed gratification, we can get them to think to themselves, maybe just getting in with the Black community might not be the best path forward. Maybe I should delay gratification, try seeing what the mulattoes are doing, investing in that future, and then going there. It requires a certain kind of character, a certain kind of person to be willing to do this. You need the values and the motive first. Mentorship and role models. I also put that in there. Young people benefit when they can see successful examples within their own community. A strong mentor-apprentice culture. I even put that. It's crazy. It just puts that in there on its own. Oh, wait a minute. Now it's saying civic responsibility. Maybe this is adapting from the earlier prompt. So let me not give myself too much credit. Mentorship and role models, civic responsibility, merit and excellence, long-term institution building. So I mean, look, it's not implausible. It's not implausible. You create the sense of shared identity and a purpose, and you start game planning in these kinds of online spaces. A few individuals, a few pioneers, a few radical people will set the tone. They will take the first step. They'll take the leap of faith. They'll start opening up businesses. They'll start opening up schools. They'll start opening up cultural organizations, putting it on Twitter, putting it on YouTube, on social media. Other mulattoes will catch wind of it. Older families, they'll take a liking. That'll attract business owners. That'll attract engineers. That'll attract professionals, teachers. They'll start coming. They'll bring their children. They'll bring their families. More people will come. And it's a snowball effect. So I just think, like, you come at it with this mindset that it's impossible. Well, of course it'll never happen, but other people have done it. Plenty of people have done this throughout history. So yeah, and like I said, you want to screen the less wanted groups of less wanted individuals, but overall you can attract quality people. You know what I mean? If people can come from fucking Taiwan, then I think we can do it.
I think the less desirable people that Al is talking about, I could be wrong, but I think it's like the ones that are like the Bantu Latas and the Golden Pookies, like the ones that are going to be our ops to say, yeah, we're going to screw them. We're not going to go along with this stupid stuff because they want to be stuck on the plantation serving massa.
Well, no poor people would be able. No, I shouldn't say poor, but no lackeys, no freeloaders, no
toxic-minded people.
Yeah, none of those people would be able to.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at a mulatto community, it has to be people that are interested in being around mulattoes and biracial people, not people who have a monoracial mentality and aren't comfortable being around biracial people like some people we're aware of.
Yep.
You know, you got to want to be in that community. If you don't, I'm sure that you could go elsewhere. But
what I want to happen, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what I want to happen with those specific type of people, they can't be fence setters. Like, they can't be on the fence. If they pick a side where they're saying, hey, look, I'm black, no, you need to stay over there. You don't get to then switch and then like come in like a little ninja with his mask on to come be a saboteur. No, you're stuck over there. You're either over there or you're over here. You don't get to hop the fence and one day you're black. Oh, well, I'm mulatto though. Look, I got the gene pool, but I don't call that. I'm black. You don't get to be a saboteur. So I want those people where if they don't get to speak and be a saboteur on anything that we're doing. They want to be black identified, fine. You're on that fence. You're on that. You stay over there. And you don't get to speak for us after that. You don't get to come and be a saboteur anymore. No, you're black. You're not us. So stay over there. That's what I want out of the situation of that. They don't get to be fence hoppers.
Yeah, people who
Right.
are radical
And like
and
I said-
committed are going to come, you know.
Yeah, trust
No,
issues are
fence
definitely
hoppers
a
and
realistic
fence
type
hoppers are gonna
of.
come. Sorry, Al, go ahead.
The wannabes are always going to be the worst. I think that's what he was referring to partly. But the wannabes are always going to be the worst because they're going to be people who really want, if they come into a community like that, their mentality will not be to be around biracial people, but to probably live in a place where they'd rather be with other kinds of people. So the wannabes are the worst. And again, unfortunately, you see indications of these types of people. You see indications of these types of people. So there are just some people that you'd have to keep an eye on in a community like this, especially people that would somehow call biracial men domestic terrorists.
Right.
People like that you can't have in a community.
Right.
Yeah, trust issues are definitely a real thing that we're gonna have to come to terms with because there's already a lot of trust issues within the community already right now. There's a lot of egos that's like kind of gotta like sift through and kind of like check them and be like, bro, like you don't control all of us. We gotta like come to a consensus as a group.
And I think that's such a dirty thing to say that the mulatto community is domestic terrorists. Like, we're the most marginalized, oppressed group, handed over to the black community to get whipped from since 1924. We're the domestic terrorists. That's complete projection. That person is the domestic terrorist, trying to keep us continuing whipped by the black community. We're being ones terrorized. How can we be the domestic terrorist when we're being terrorized? That's such language to keep us getting whipped forever and eternal. When that's complete projection that we're the domestic terrorists when we're actually suffering from domestic terrorism from black people that are racist. They got their power from the whites.
It's a dangerous phrase to use, not just against biracial and mulatto men,
What phrase?
but in general in this country, in this climate.
A domestic terrorist.
I could tell this person that in January 6th of 2021, there were domestic terrorists. You go point out to me any of those people who were mulatto, who were mixed race, who were biracial, who were multiracial. You won't find a single one.
Zero.
And you're gonna go and state this slur and attack mixed race men, you know, I've heard monoracial people say all kinds of things about biracial and mulatto people, but I've never
Yeah.
heard them call them that.
They
That a
hate
woman
freedom.
who
They don't want
supposedly is
freedom.
mixed
They
said
don't want
this.
freedom.
That a woman who is supposedly mixed said this about mixed race men tells you something about the dysfunction, self-hatred, self-loathing, and utter hatred that some of these biracial people have for others. It's sad
Yeah.
and tragic, and you know what? For some people, that's the. I mean, when you think about it, this is horrible stuff. I mean, this is horrible. I've heard people insult big mulatto men like me. I've never heard them say anything like that. Never.
What did you guys think about the town hall meeting the other day? I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Wasn't that
Anybody?
Michael Sprague? Oh
Yeah, that
yeah,
was the
yeah,
one.
yeah.
I
Me,
tried to
you,
negotiate a peace. I tried to negotiate a peace deal with him.
yeah,
I did. You
yeah.
saw me go in there and
Well,
try to do that.
I think it was one of them things where they just don't take whatever anybody says seriously or whatever because they're more caught up with just as you say that was entertaining. Like they literally said that they were looking for entertainment. That's why they keep like attacking people and calling them names for no reasons because all they're looking for is entertainment. They're looking for you to get mad, to clap back, and then they're gonna laugh at you. Like it's the same thing that I've dealt with all my life for monoracials. So.
Well, because some of these people, like the Twins of Evil, are basically. I'm just going to put it out there. I think they're secretly one droppers, and they really are really pro monoracial. They really want to be monoracial, but they don't want to give that impression right off the bat. So when you talk about the same kind of tactics you face from monoracial people, that's who they get their signals from, and that's who they're trying to impress. So, you know,
They grew up in the
again,
black
when you're
community,
talking
I
about the
think.
Twins of Evil, what they really want is to more inclusive environment. They're not comfortable being in a mixed race space. When I was in the mixed race space on YouTube, they made it clear they weren't happy with it because they weren't making money. They weren't getting paid. And that space was
Mhm.
not about payment and getting money, giving money to content creators. It was about discussion. It was about conversation. It was about networking. That's why you came there. You didn't come there to throw money at content creators. That's fine, but go to a space where they paid those content creators. That wasn't it. So you look at the priorities and agendas of some of these people. Some of these people are just, compared to what I recall the mixed race spaces before, it just seems nastier and more vicious now. Just nastier and vicious.
They
You
don't
know,
have really anything else to like pull from. They just keep pulling out from the same bag and they're gay. They have to keep doubling down because they have nothing else to pull from. So
And look at the mulatto activists, look at the mulatto vanguard, look at the mulatto mindset. All bring nutritional value to the table, something that is going to fill our bellies and give us nutrients. They bring nothing. They bring a bunch of junk food. We're going to get cancer with their content. That's all they have. And that's why they cannot handle anything that any of us have to say with this nutritional content. It disturbs their spirit and their soul. That's why in that town meeting, Nana rage quit. And then and Sleazy, all she did was, you're okay. And then bounced. That's all
cry
they have.
babies and all that. That's it. If you don't give them no ammunition, all they're gonna
and you
do is
know
just
the
call you
Twins of Evil
crybabies
don't
all
like
the time for no
biracial
reason.
guys. They don't like mulatto guys either.
No, sad for them.
Yeah, I mean it's sad because like
Mulatto guys either. That's why they had that woman on the panel.
yeah, I tried to, I tried to be cordial with them. I tried
Right.
to, I tried to level with them. And I got passionate at certain points here and there. But overall, I felt like I was trying to be very reasonable. And even then, they still came with the slurs. They still came with the, you're gay. All this kind of mulatto men are gay. It's very sad. You know, it's very sad the rhetoric that is coming from these particular women. It's almost like they view us as the adversaries, and it's like, how are we the adversary when we're trying to liberate you? We're trying to save you. It doesn't make sense. It is like a form of Stockholm syndrome. And you know, it just puts things into perspective. Like, this is going to be, I mean, we're going to have to be the ones who move the ball forward, because those people are not trying to build with us at all. They are our adversaries. Hopefully it gets to a point where this space is so big, this community is so big, there's so many creators here, that we just like totally eclipse them and we totally overshadow them, and we just like dwarf them. Like, we make them so small, so insignificant, that they're just totally irrelevant, and everybody in the golden sphere is totally irrelevant. And the mulattoes basically do a hostile takeover and totally just, you know, wipe them from the collective memory. But yeah, we're at a point now where it's like they're trying to assassinate our character, and like I said, they were trying to do false copyright strikes on mulatto mindset. So they're engaging in a kind of, you know, I don't know what it is. Like, what if why even engage with our content? Why engage with our content? Why talk about us? Why do copyright strikes on us? Why? To me, it doesn't make sense. It's just like, you think, like, wouldn't you just focus on creating your own content? They say that we talk about them. We really don't really don't talk about them like that. I don't.
Like,
I've never.
See, here's what I realized. I
was about to say, full disclaimer for the mulattoes, biracial or black.
I thought at first it was a publicity stunt, because I hadn't heard about Gigi in a long time.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Raj.
Okay. I was just gonna say, full disclaimer on like biracial mulattoes or black identified mulattoes. To me, they're not really a thought in my head. Like, I'll shout out the biracial mulattoes, even if they're black identified, like doing something constructive and everything. I won't go out of my way to hit them up, but doing something constructive, I'll shout you out. But I ain't about to go out of my way to like try to build with you if you ain't trying to build back or whatever. I'm just like, I'll shout whoever's like doing something productive and constructive, and I'll keep moving on my way.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's all you can do.
Well, see, at first I thought it was a publicity stunt. I wrote it off because I hadn't heard about the Twins of Evil in a long time. And I thought, why are they doing this? It was totally out of the blue. I saw Mindset's content. I saw Vanguard's. They didn't mention these ladies at all. They were doing their thing. And these women came out of the blue and attacked them. Preemptive strike. I mean, it was almost like the Iran war, the way they operated.
You mean a false flag? Not a preemptive strike, a false flag. A fucking false flag. They hit us with the USS
And
Liberty.
then when I realized, a false flag is a good way of putting it, because at first I thought it was a publicity stunt. And then I realized, because what I found out was one of the two had done a video about mixed race men hate mixed race women. And I realized, wait a minute, this isn't some spur of the moment live stream, 4-hour live stream they did. It wasn't spur of the moment. This is probably a plan. They planned to go after Mindset. They planned to pivot and use the gender sex aspect against the mulatto or biracial male content creators. So my assessment is this is a plan on their part. I mean, they're targeting people. They went after Mindset. Mindset's channel, last I heard, was deleted.
It's back up.
This is what they want. They want to get these channels off the air. I'm trying not to be alarmist here, but I'm looking at this pattern. I'm going, no, this. I thought at first, I wrote it off myself. I thought it was a publicity stunt trying to get stuff for their channel. No, it isn't about their channels. They want these other channels out of the way because Gigi had to leave the mixed race space at the time because of her actions. And I think she's still bitter. She's still angry. She's still upset. And I think she's trying to take it out on people. I have to say, I think this is a plan of theirs. And I think they've gone after mindset. I don't know who else they have in mind, but they're enlisting this guy, I'll call him Michael Myers, to also attack male content creators. That's why I had absolutely nothing to do with that town hall. He wanted me up there. Now, I'm somebody who's watching content. I'm not in a space. I don't do content. I never make videos or live streams about anybody. Why are you all of a sudden attacking me? Like I said,
Right.
and I don't know this guy. Like, okay, yeah, I was critical of you because I try to be polite to you and you try to get snippy. I'm like, no, I'm not dealing with this guy. Like, these people, they got an agenda. I'm sorry. Look, I try to be as positive as I could in the time that I'm here on this live stream, but I'm sorry, I have to say it. Like I said, these people have a plan. They're targeting content creators. These people are dangerous. And you guys, just be very careful. I know you guys have come up. You're doing content, some good content that you guys are doing, but be very careful. I know them well enough to know these are vicious women, nasty women. Go ahead.
I have my critiques about like mindset and Vanguard as well, but it's not like they aren't putting out educational content like, Progress was saying. And when I go over to their channels and everything, I don't see a whole lot of constructive or productive content. I see a whole lot of like, just nonsense or just starting, like you said, just starting nonsense for no reason and everything. That's the only reason why I'm like, if they actually like put out like skills or knowledge, information, something that I could like chew on and think about, then it'd be cool and everything. But like I look at some of their content, I just kind of like leave feeling like, man, I wasted my time, wasted my energy. So,
and half the people up there are monos anyway, so it's like, what am I really gaining from this? What am I gaining from listening to a 3-hour long live stream of monos talking about us? It just doesn't make sense. It's like, how is that moving the ball forward for us exactly? It's really not.
Yeah.
But anyways, gentlemen, I'm gonna wrap this up. I want to go give you guys any last thoughts. So Raj, you want to go ahead? Any last thoughts?
Well, I just appreciate being here. I'm gonna continue, trying to engage with these panels and get up on these panels and speak, keep networking and stuff like that. I want to do a live stream this Friday, but I gotta see what my situation's gonna look like before then. If not, I'll probably just do one sometime next week. But let's just keep going. I don't know. I don't really got nothing else to say. Let's just keep going.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, my man. Thank you so much. Thank you for stopping by.
Appreciate y'all.
I'll stop by on Friday.
All right, bet.
Sounds like a winner. Alrighty. Progress. You got anything to add before we head out?
I just want to say I agree with Al, man. I agree with Al. Their mission is to take down our channels. They even said on one of their 4-hour hit piece live stream that Mindsets and Vanguard's channel is eventually going to get taken down. So Al is completely 100% right. They have a nasty agenda, and these are wicked and evil people. And besides that, other than that, I'm really proud of the direction that this is going in, and they're not going to be able to do anything to prevent it because it's too good. It's like it's too much nutrition, it's too much meat, and you can't stop when you have the truth on your side. You can't beat it, especially when you don't get distracted with all the other nonsense out there. And I don't think we are. I think we're staying centered and focused with our eye on the prize and the target with the truth. And the thing about the truth is it cuts like a double-edged sword. That's why they're losing their stuff. That's why Nana rage quit on the town hall, and then all Sleazy had to say on the way out was, they're all gay. Because that truth, it cuts like a double-edged sword. And they're going to lose. and our channels aren't going to get taken down because this is too good. And look at a productive conversation we had up here. Even in the kind of the beginning, you know, Al had his critique of you, and then, you know, it was a little bit of a misunderstanding here and there, but look at how we came together with intelligence, and we talked it out, and we got to a point to where maybe, hey, look, we don't agree on everything, but hey, I can kind of see your point, and this kind of could work over here. Hey, that could work, and then we, you know, we handled it with class. This is class personified. You can't stop that. You can't get that off the internet. You can't get us out of here with that. This is class. They don't have any. If anything, they're going to be up out of here because, like I already said before, the only thing Nana is good at is deactivating her channel, which that's what she's going to do again. With that, I just want to say I'm proud of everybody, and I love you, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Progress. You're the man, bro. Shout out to you. Thank you for stopping by. Alrighty. Al, anything, any last words, any closing thoughts?
What I would say is I think your foundations are a good start. I think it's nice content, something worth chewing over and looking at, which is what happened tonight. So I appreciate it.
And I appreciate the feedback always. You can be brutally honest.
Which is what it's feedback. I don't want to be brutally honest because if I'm brutally honest, I'm like them, and I don't want to be them. I'm not
honest.
Yeah, I'd rather be honest. I'll let them be brutal. But the content creators that have come up that are mulatto, that are biracial, that are multiracial, keep doing your content, folks. Keep putting out those live streams. Keep putting out those videos. Keep talking about biracial issues. I just found out today that guy, I think his name was Nolan Wells, you know, the one in Mississippi. I found out he's biracial. You know,
I don't know. Well, here's the thing about him.
Yeah.
I think people are saying his mom is Asian. It looks to me like his mom is Blasian. Here, let me just show you.
Right. I was thinking about that myself, but
what ethnicity is Nolan Wells' mom? She's black. Yeah, she is black and Filipino. That's what it says. I could tell she was Filipino. I was like, she looks Filipino and black, and I literally guessed it.
So I was right after all. I found out she was Filipino, but I didn't know. I had a feeling. I wasn't sure. Yeah. But, you know, I just want to say to the people out there, I don't know what, I've heard the term mulattosphere used. I don't know who came up with that term. There is no such space that I'm aware of. I think it's more like a straw man argument type thing on their part. But the thing I want to say is keep making those videos, keep making the live streams, keep putting out the information and having the discussions.
Definitely.
But also be very careful. There are adversaries to the mixed race, whatever you want to call the space, if indeed it's a space, there are adversaries to these content creators. We know their names. It is evident who they are and what they're about. So keep that in mind and keep some of these other content creators in mind too. They're threatened. Mindset was threatened. Vanguard was threatened. Hopefully you're okay. They won't come after you, but be very, as they used to say on Hill Street Blues, TV show back in the 80s, let's be careful out there. Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate being here.
Thank you so much, Al. Have a great night.
You too.
All right. Yeah, it's always nice having the guys come up here and give their thoughts. It's nice. It's nice having Al. Al is always a really good contribution. He always has a lot of good things to say. So I really like Al coming here. Shout out to Raj. Shout out to Progress. I don't know. I want to try to do these live streams at least once or twice a week. It would be nice. And I think that it would be good to come up here and kind of like actually talk about important things, actually talk about constructive stuff, that will help us get the ball moving in the right direction. You know, because here's the thing, like, thank you, Al. Thank you so much for coming through. Here's the thing about the kind of here's the thing, guys. I can make content clowning on monoracials and Bantuladas all day long. It's not hard. It's very easy. And I can get a lot of views doing it. Um, at the end of the day, the goal of this ultimately is to manifest it into some kind of physical community. Is it a lofty goal? Sure. Of course it's a lofty goal. Maybe it'll be difficult. Maybe it'll take several years to get a real community, a real physical community going. Sure. But you still have to try and you still have to consider it, contemplate it, strategize, think about ways of getting to that as a long-term goal, because that is the ideal long-term goal, to have a physical community and to hopefully create an organic culture that we can pass down through several generations that is distinct from white or Black American culture. And I don't mind being the pioneer. I don't mind being the bad guy. I don't mind taking the slings and arrows. I'm fine with that. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, look, like I'm willing to put in the work and I'm willing to do the brainstorming and I'm willing to kind of put together the ideas, put together the PowerPoints, go through the steps on how we actually get to said physical community. I think it is a worthwhile investment long term. And I want people to give me their input, give me their feedback, give me their criticisms, give me their advice, give me their, you know, feelings, share their feelings with me about these things. Cause like I said, this is going to be a collective effort. I can't do this on my own. None of us can. This is a collective effort. It is a group effort. So as far as, you know, the content regarding, monoracials, you know, I'll leave some of that stuff for the videos and I'll do some more short form videos, you know, 5 minutes, 6 minutes long. Because those hour, 30-minute long videos are a slog. But the live streams, I think the live streams are going to be more dedicated to connecting with the audience, talking about important stuff, like really actually important stuff, and trying to make valuable, long-term, permanent contributions to the space through my advocacy, through me relaying information to the space. And, you know, at the end of the day, even if the things I say are not perfect, they're not things that you might agree with wholeheartedly. You know, I know Al has some criticisms of the kind of cultural stuff that I was talking about, which is fair. And I like that. I like that he is a free thinker and he's willing to push back on me. But even then, I like that I'm even getting you guys to start thinking about these things. You know, we got to start our identity as mulattoes. It has to be deeper than shared genealogy and a common enemy. It needs to be more than that. Thanks, Alan Mulatto activist. Thanks, Vale, for coming through. Shout out to you. Yeah, our identity, if we're going to survive and win and thrive as a group, it needs to be deeper than a common enemy and genealogy. There needs to be a culture, a history, a love, a passion, hope, fucking hope. There needs to be hope present in our group, in our consciousness, in our race, because that positive vision is really what's going to get people to buy in to what we're doing here, outside of just the criticisms of other cultures and other people. So a lot of work ahead of us, but I'm going to be here slogging it out, brainstorming, you know, putting myself through the ringer. Trust me, this stuff is it's stressful on me too, because you're thinking about race and you're thinking about culture and you're thinking about politics and society and money. So it wears on me too. It wears on me too. You know, a lot to think about. It's deep existential stuff, but I'm doing it because I think it's a worthwhile investment. And if something good comes of it, it'll all have been worth it in the end. All the sacrifice will have been worth it in the end. And so yeah, I want to dedicate the live streams to doing more productive stuff. And I hope that you guys come through and show support and hop up on the panels and let me know what you guys think. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys for coming through. That's all I got to say for right now. I will be back in a few days, not much longer than that, with a new topic. And once again, if you guys did like the video, please do like the stream. It helps with the algorithm. Yeah, I appreciate you guys for coming through. It's been Mulatto Activist, and I'm out. Have a great night, guys. Peace.